All right, now let's get analysis. We are now joined via Teams by energy expert Adil Nchabeleng. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. So Dr. Ramokgopa says government is doing everything possible to end load shedding before December. Is that a possible target as things stand? I mean, we've also heard this, of course, from the ANC Secretary General not too long ago, that deadline to end load shedding is possible for December 2023.
Look, the deadline is possible if the teams are going to work very hard behind the scene. And let me rightfully start by saying that currently within the electricity and energy sector, the leadership we have is quite all right. So it's quite encouraging to see that there's been a huge improvement in terms of taking the issues that have been raised seriously, making efforts to actually end load shedding, and ensuring that the issue of power stations and maintenance and bringing up bed capacity is actually prioritized.
How worried are you that, I mean, during that briefing, he also announced that, of course, Quebec Unit 1 is still not up and running. I mean, we know that, of course, it has been down for quite some time, almost 18 months, and they've missed the deadline where it was supposed to be refurbished and restored already.
I'm quite worried with regards to the fact that Quebec is completely out, and as a result, is actually affecting us with almost 2,000 megawatts. So bringing it back into operation is quite critical. But at the same time, I mean, this was something that was done deliberately, delayed the finalization of Quebec's infrastructure in terms of the steam generator. There were politics around it that should have been avoided, and it should have been just technical engineering and a decision taken by Eskom, executives, in terms of prioritizing the return to operation of Eskom, particularly the Quebec power station. So there were too many interferences as well as unnecessary issues around the interference of people claiming to work for the green lobby and trying to stop Eskom focusing on nuclear.
As a result of that interference, according to you, this is why we've lost 2,000 megawatts, and we are seeing then, the high levels of load shedding. Is that the case across the board in terms of, plants that need urgent refurbishments, and we haven't seen or even gotten to the heart of the delays?
Absolutely. I mean, the current Eskom's loss on plant factor right now is about 16,000. It's not a small capacity. I mean, there's only been a reduction of about 3,000 megawatts since the start of the program. It's quite significant in taking back capacity into the grid. But focusing on the fundamentals, remember that each megawatt, 1,000 megawatts loss in Eskom over an annual period contributes 132 billion in terms of our GDP contribution. So if you have over a year 1,000 megawatts out in terms of contribution of energy generation, you're missing out of your economy 132 billion contribution. So the mindset has to start now moving backwards. Demand is not the problem. The problem is the supply crisis that we're sitting with, whereby Eskom is failing to provide sufficient as well as guaranteed electricity.
And of course, another thing that is worrying as you are talking about financial related matters is that we are hearing from a recent report that has been published that suggests that Eskom has already spent about half of its budget, for this financial year around emergency generation fleet at a cost of over 12 billion rand. And this, of course, relates to its diesel.
Absolutely. The challenge of the overrun and cost spend with regards to Eskom and how they are actually spending on diesel. I mean, over 12 billion has already been spent in the current financial year with regards to spend on diesel. It's quite concerning. It's something that should be actually monitored and finalized to say that there has to be a way out. We've only resolved 3,000. You need another 6,000 to get out of this entire crisis of load shedding as well as energy reserve margin. Once that can be prioritized, you would have functioning power plants, you would use lesser diesel, you would have operating, lesser breaking down plants, and you'll be able to actually produce the electricity that is demanded by the economy. You know, as I said to you, we can't work and encourage Eskom to be a company that encourages consumers to use less of electricity. That should be happening. People should be consuming more electricity to produce the GDP that we need, as well as the income that we need in the country. And Eskom should be providing that electricity on a secure basis so that economic growth becomes a norm and standard in South Africa, rather than telling us to reduce electricity and the demand of electricity.
Just talking about that capacity and the fact, of course, in terms of needing functional power plants. I mean, some have actually said it may take anything between 2 to 3 years, if not more. Then the question then is, you know, what are we doing from a long-term perspective? You know, following today's briefing, do you get a sense that we are actually also making sure that we take care of the long-term plan and not be on some sort of, you know, emergency mode all the time, as we've been seeing?
Look, I think they have a capacity which is good enough to can actually cater for all of the above. In terms of taking care of the immediate, planning for the, taking care of the agency now, planning for the immediate future, which is the next 3 years, and then doing a long-term plan. Currently, there is no long-term plan. The long-term plan is based on the Just Energy Transition Plan, which is going to be disastrous because we don't have technology that is capable to can fully move South Africa out of coal and fossil fuels-based energy and electricity. So the plan should be, right now, immediately bring back all the power plants that are currently out of action and service, that are broken down under no schedule with regards to maintenance and everything. Bring them back, make them operational. You recover the 16,000 megawatts. You have already now saved the country from going into load shedding for the next 10 years. Then to do an immediate, immediate plan to start building brand new power plants. Bring in the independent power producers, but Eskom has to focus on brand new power plants of coal, nuclear, as well as gas-based and other alternative solutions. But if you're not building any brand new capacity, you're going to keep South Africa's economy in its doldrum, in its current breaking down system, whereby there is no income, and you are going to cause the economic hardship going into the next 5 to 10 years. So the immediate should be going with the long-term planning. But planning is not sufficient. There needs to be action of building brand new power stations and bringing in additional capacity from the independent providers and alternative producers market. That one would happen and would help us as South Africa to quickly improve out of this situation. Everywhere around the world, people are building power stations at 10 times the amount. They're building 10 plus power stations. Some are building 20. China is building 50 power stations a year. So the mindset has to change from our side as Africans to start thinking in a developmental state and in a fast growing transformation state to say building brand new power stations is the priority.
Mr. Nchabeleng, thank you so much for your analysis and your time this afternoon. Really do appreciate it. Energy expert there, Adil Nchabeleng, just weighing in on the energy crisis in the country.